For the Europe Geography Unit, you need to have some paper because we'll be taking some notes, but you also need to have the map out of Europe, and we will be labeling the map and then taking a few notes about those countries and then labeling the next few countries and taking notes about those countries. The map of Europe looks pretty complex, and it is. It's got 44 separate countries, and the map of Europe has changed significantly over the several hundreds of years, but also just in the few years that I've been teaching, I think I've had to use 5 or 6 different maps. So make sure you have those out as well. All right, so let's begin. Our first country that we're going to label is the country of Iceland. And although Iceland is not on the main continent of Europe, it is considered to be part of the European continent. And so it's the island labeled at the top. And as far as notes about Iceland, Iceland is probably misnamed because your perception of Iceland is that it's cold, that it's, icy, that there's not a lot of life, but really that's not the case at all. Iceland is actually more green than Greenland, and Greenland is actually more ice than Iceland. So maybe these two islands, both located in the northern Atlantic, are misnamed, and quite honestly, that's part of it. They misnamed them so that people would not go to these countries, and come to the countries to attack. And so that was actually part of the reason why they are misnamed. Iceland also has a lot of hot springs and geysers, things that maybe you wouldn't associate with a name like Iceland. These are all natural and are part of the tourism that is drawn into Iceland. We're going to watch a short video about the Blue Lagoon, which is one of the natural hot springs.
We've arrived at the world-renowned Blue Lagoon, and I think you can agree it is just simply stunning. Lavisa is the marketing representative. Lavisa, this is just stunning. What a job you've got.
Yes, it's a really great job.
And tell me about what it is exactly that's going on. I'm not much of a geologist or a volcanologist, whatever you call it. What's happening here? What's going on?
The lagoon is known for its active ingredients, silica, minerals, and algae, and their positive effects on skin. What
kind of effects? What will that do to your skin?
Well, the silica cleanses and exfoliates the skin, and the minerals balance the skin, and then the algae nourish the skin. So after you bathe, you look like 10 years younger.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'll look 11. That's all natural? That's already in the water?
Yes, it is. We drill directly for the hot water about 2,000 meters below surface, and then the water is about 240 degrees warm. And we mix it together with cold water so we can control the heat, so the temperature is about 37 to 39 degrees.
All right, so Iceland, probably misnamed. All right, the next ones I want you to label. Norway. Okay, this country right here, along the Atlantic, just across from Iceland. In the middle, you have Sweden. Off to the east, you have Finland. And down here, this peninsula and islands is Denmark. So label Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. All right, now when you think about maybe what you know about Europe and so forth, these 4 countries have something in common, and I'm not sure if you've heard of this term or not, but these 4 countries are also called a region, or named as a region, known as Scandinavia. A lot of people from Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska are from Scandinavia, just because the farmland is what really attracted people from these countries to immigrate into the United States. The Vikings, of course, are from this region as well. So if you're a history buff and you're into the Vikings and their conquests, they are from this region. Denmark, being a peninsula and some islands, there is no place in Denmark that is more than 32 miles from the ocean. So it's not a very big country at all. Denmark is probably most well known for Legos. That's where they were created. The picture on the right is actually a picture of a fjord, F-J-O-R-D. A fjord is these inlets that Norway has so many of. When we go back and look at the map and you see all of these inlets here going in and out, and it looks like rough terrain, it's not a nice smooth border. A lot of cruises go in these little bays, if you will, or fjords is what they're called, because it is pretty breathtaking. When you think you could cruise in there, it's deep water, it's rugged cliffs, it doesn't gradually go down into the water like a beach, like we're typically used to. And so that's kind of what this area is well known for. All right, next on your map, label the United Kingdom and Ireland. Both are islands, again, off of the mainland of Europe, but is considered to be part of Europe. And when you're over here, notice that the pink island is the United Kingdom, but this little portion here on Ireland is also pink, which means it belongs to the United Kingdom, and we'll address that here in just a little bit. So the United Kingdom, or the UK, and Ireland. All right, Ireland and the UK have really a checkered past, if you will. They have been fighting or arguing for several decades, since 1921, over that little portion of land called Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is what these two countries have been disputing over, and quite honestly, because of that, the violence had escalated, and we don't really hear too much about it now because other parts of the world have kind of outdone them as far as violence. But there used to be the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and this was an organization that was trying to get Northern Ireland freed from the United Kingdom and back to be part of Ireland. And when you negotiate and things don't happen, it tends to end up being violent. And the IRA really was basically a terrorist organization because they weren't getting their way, and so they started to lead to violent tactics. When you go to London, Heathrow Airport is probably one of the securest airports I have been in all the countries that I've traveled to. Several places you had to go through metal detectors, not just one like here in the United States. Military personnel carrying weapons and so forth, because they have had this scuttle, and so because of that, it has escalated the violence. The United Kingdom is made up of 4 parts. In the far north, you can see we have Scotland, and then England, which of course is probably the most well-known. The small one on the west is Wales, and again, this part right here is Northern Ireland. And those 4 parts make up the United Kingdom. London, the capital of the United Kingdom, is not only the largest city in the UK, but it's the largest city in Europe with over 7 million people. Yet most of the police officers do not carry guns. And this has always been kind of an unusual thing, that they just carry billy clubs, and it is a pretty safe place. However, in 2011, armed police, there are certain police officers that do carry weapons, and one of those armed police officers shot Mark Dugan, and it incited 2 or 3 days of riots, talking about police violence and so forth, and should they carry guns or shouldn't they? Are the police officers more at danger, or is it more of a risk for them to have weapons with them. And there's, people on both sides of that argument. But in 2011, that argument really escalated. London also has the longest running monarchy. And for a long time, it was Queen Victoria of England that was the longest ruling monarchy, but now it is Queen Elizabeth II. She has ruled since 1953, and this just shows you some pictures with U.S. presidents so you can kind of go through and see how long she has ruled. So we of course have Obama, and then we have George W. Bush, and then we have Bill Clinton, we have George H. Bush, and we have Ronald Reagan, and we have Jimmy Carter, and we have Lyndon Johnson, we have Richard Nixon, John F. Kennedy, Eisenhower, and Truman. So you can see through those pictures that she kept getting younger and younger, of course, but she's been ruling since 1953, and that makes London kind of a unique place because there are not a lot of places that have monarchies. And of course, in the news, you have all of the information about the monarchy, and with Prince William and their newest addition to the family being probably the next in line. All right, on our maps, we have labeled Iceland, we have labeled Norway, we have labeled Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. Go ahead and label the Netherlands and Belgium. The Netherlands and Belgium. All right, these two countries have something in common, and it's typically just culture. Both of these countries are Dutch. And if you talk about Dutch settlers, if you talk about Dutch explorers, or that you speak Dutch, that's from the Netherlands and also Belgium. The Netherlands is really where the Dutch are well known for. You've got the typical tulips, you've got the windmills, you've got the wooden shoes. So the Netherlands are the true Dutch culture, and it's exactly what you envision. Also, Netherlands is kind of nicknamed Holland, and so if you hear someone referring to Holland, you're actually referring to the Netherlands. Belgium, well known for a couple of different foods. One's one of my favorites, and the other one is not so much my favorite. Belgian waffles are, of course, from Belgium, and it is, well known for these delicious breakfast items. The other thing is the vegetables of Brussels sprouts, which were grown as early as the 1200s. And the connection here is Belgium is the country, and Brussels, plural, is the name of the capital. And so those two foods can kind of remind you of the country and the capital of Belgium. All right, at this point, what I want you to do is just make sure that you review all of the countries that we just went over, and make sure you know those countries. Like I said, there are 44 countries, and you're going to need to know the religions of these countries and the languages that these countries speak, and plus the notes that we're taking for the test. So it's in your best interest to chunk the material, so make sure you practice the map. I have plenty of copies up on my desk, and so you can practice this map. I've also got a link on Canvas where you can go through and practice online, and all you do is click, it asks you, okay, click on Iceland, and you click on the right one. If it does, it turns it green, I believe, and if it takes a couple of turns, it turns it yellow, and then once you've had 2 or 3 tries and you get it wrong, then it turns it red. So please review the map and the notes for tomorrow.